Hey, what's going on YouTube? This is Sorare Teacher. Now, as you guys know, the MLS season is starting in about 2 weeks' time. I think the kickoff games are February 26th. As a matter of fact, a handful of teams are actually getting some CONCACAF Champions League games next week. So, very, very soon, we'll be able to use our MLS cards once again in Sorare. And so, for this video, I just want to go through really fast my current plans for Champions America in this upcoming MLS season. So let's go ahead and start with my goalkeeper. Now, as you guys have probably figured out, goalies have gone through the roof, especially MLS goalkeepers for this off season. Right, they've been sky high in terms of price. So what I ended up doing is I pretty much chose one of the more budget friendly options for this off season. And as you can see, I've trained him up pretty well here, right? 10%. Um, Now he plays for LA Galaxy. Not the best defense. I think they only had about 5 or 6. I think it was 5 clean sheets last season. So really not that great at keeping the ball out of the net. However, this is the position that really matters the least, right? Um, as long as you can get some points out of a goalie, especially because the goalie position is so varying, right? It's so wildly dependent on a bunch of other factors besides the goalie's quality. I figured, hey, you know what? Let's just buy a budget goalie. And when I say budget, I mean he's currently selling for almost half an ETH. So that's what I consider my budget goalie is half an ETH. Just to sort of fill in, make sure I have 5 full rares for Champions America this season. For defense, this is kind of where I splurge quite a bit. I'm really high on defenders because of the high floor that they often provide. For example, one of the guys that I bought quite a long time ago for about zero point zero 0.05 ETH is Jack Elliott for the Philadelphia Union. Really, really solid, really high floor. He has a pretty good high ceiling as well due to his all around score. This guy is someone who can regularly get you 60 plus points just through all around score alone. So I really am high on the Philadelphia Union defense. Jack Elliott, especially at center back, he is the core of that center back position. He's not going anywhere for a while, so I really like having him. He's an every week starter, every game starter, pretty much every minute starter as well. I also have Kai Wagner from the Philadelphia Union. I'm a Philadelphia Union fan in real life. I'm also a fan of them in terms of silver cards, silver players. Uh, if you've been paying attention at all to the MLS, especially last year, you probably know that Kai Wagner is one of the biggest playmakers and one of the best scorers in the fullback position in the MLS. If I had to argue, I would say he is the best fullback in the MLS. And definitely one of the best fullbacks in Champions America, period. The guy gets up the field a lot. He gets a high score due to getting the ball into the final third, pushing in a lot of accurate passes, getting a fair number of assists, and a few goals per season. So he's able to get decisives. He pushes the ball up the field, which is great for his all around score. The Union don't give up many goals. They get a lot of clean sheets, which is also good for his clean sheet bonus. And so, in my opinion, one of the best defenders you can have in Champions America. He's currently sells for, I think, a little over zero point 0.2 ETH now, almost a quarter of an ETH last time I checked. So this is definitely where I splurged. Guy who's I'm planning to hold on to for as long as he stays in MLS, which might not be for much longer, but I plan to use him for as long as he stays. And if he moves, depending on where he moves to, I would probably end up selling him closer to the summer or during that European summer transfer window. Let's talk midfield. Now, midfield is kind of where I'm probably overloaded a little bit. I probably picked up more midfielders than I need to. The guy I plan to use the most, pretty much every week, is Mauricio Pereira. He is a starting midfielder for Orlando City. Now, Orlando had a lot of turnover in their offense. Daryl DK is gone. Chris Mueller is gone. Nani is gone. So they pretty much had to replace their entire offensive line besides Pereira. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because the guys they replaced him with, Facundo Torres, who came from Latin America, as well as Ercan Kara from the Austrian Bundesliga, those guys look really promising. Kara was really great at Rapid Vienna. So I think probably just another plug and play system, right? You get bring in new guys, put them in. They'll probably succeed pretty well. I think they'll do quite well. So I think Pereira will continue his streak of having a lot of assists, chipping in the occasional goal, hopefully. And so I really expect him to be the guy I'm using pretty much every week in the midfielder position. When Pereira doesn't have a good matchup, when I think he's got a pretty low quality matchup, I will either use Sebastian Lletget. Actually, I might use Lletget in a dual midfielder lineup as well if the Revs have a good matchup. As you guys probably know, Lletget just moved from the Galaxy to the Revs, and I think that is a wonderful, wonderful move for him. Back at the Galaxy, if you've watched any of my previous videos, especially one of my earlier videos where I talked about Lletget, he was used pretty much everywhere for the Galaxy. He was used as a winger, he's used as a midfielder, he was used out of position very, very often. And when he moved to the Revs, one of the things he said about his transfer was that he's expected to be used in his natural position as an attacking midfielder for most of the season. He's replacing Buchanan, right? He's slotting into one of the best offenses in the history of the MLS, right? With Gil, with Boo, with Buxa. And so I think that since he'll be surrounded by all that talent, like he's been surrounded by a tremendous amount of talent, uh, I honestly think the sky's the limit for Lletget. He's still undervalued in my opinion. I think the last time I saw a sale was around 0.08, 0.09. And so he could literally be one of the biggest bargains for the 2022 season, considering who he's now surrounded by and the fact that he'll be playing his natural position in the attacking midfield for pretty much the entire season. So I kind of bouncing between Lletget and Pereira every week. It really is going to come down to who I think has a more favorable matchup. Most likely being the Revs, but Pereira is a really, really strong candidate to be one of my every week guys in Champions America. At forward, this is a guy I plan to use every week in and out because of how strong the Revs are in terms of their offensive firepower, right, their offensive capabilities with Gale and Buxa, is Adam Buxa. Now, this guy was a bit of a touch and go situation for this offseason. There were rumors of him moving to like Serie B to Pisa. There are rumors of him maybe going to Zenit or to Reims in Ligue 1, right in France. But he ended up staying. The European transfer window is closed, so he's definitely staying for this offseason. And I expect him to have another double-digit goal season. He scored 16 goals in 2021, which I think was almost tied for first, right? Castellanos had 19 goals. He got the Golden Boot. So Buxa was not very far behind the Golden Boot winner last year. And so I think with Lletget around him, with Gil, Boo still there, again, the sky's the limit, right? Double-digit goals are pretty much assured as long as he stays healthy and as long as that attacking midfield stays healthy. I'm almost pretty positive that. So I expect to get a really good return out of Buxa in this 2022 season. He might get sold in the transfer window in the summer. I know his contract ends in December at the end of the year, so they'll probably try to move him for a fee in the summer. And if that's the case, again, just like my other guys, or just like Wagner, if he gets sold, then I'll sell him too. I don't expect him to do as well in Europe or somewhere else as he's currently doing in the MLS. I think he's just too good for the MLS right now. So if he moves on, it's fine. I'll sell him in the summer transfer window. I'll probably replace him with whoever's hot in the middle of the season. But for now, right, like Wagner, I plan to use him as long as he stays in the MLS because he's one of those guys who's just too good for the MLS, like Kai Wagner is. I've got a couple other rotation pieces, a couple other backup pieces, depending on matchups, depending on the health of my top tier guys. In defense, oopsie daisy. I actually picked up Anton Walks, who's currently with Charlotte. He was with Atlanta United for the past several years. He just got picked up by Charlotte in the expansion draft. Now, Charlotte looks, at least from the preseason games and stuff that I've watched, Charlotte looks pretty terrible. I do not expect Charlotte to have a good season. They're kind of like all over the place offensively, defensively. Their goalkeepers are pretty untested. So there's really a lot up in the air with Charlotte. Nobody knows whether they'll be good, bad, but indicators look like they'll be pretty bad to start the season. So why would I buy a defender on a team that looks like they might be pretty bad? Well, if you think about it, for a guy who's going to be the centerpiece of their defense, right, in the center back position, guy's going to play pretty much every minute of every game when he's healthy, If they're bad, that gives him a lot of opportunity to get a really high all-around score. Probably won't get many clean sheet bonuses, but if they're constantly on the back foot because of a poor offense, that's a lot of opportunities for tackles, for clearances, for interceptions. And so I think he could be, in theory, a pretty good candidate for double doubles and triple triples every week because that offense, again, is bad. It's looking pretty trash. And so if they're defensively having to do a lot of work, then that means he's going to be getting a lot of work, right? A lot of tackles, a lot of clearances, a lot of blocks. So that would be really, really good for his all around score. So it is a gamble. It is certainly a very big gamble. But I think this is one of those situations where it's high risk, high reward, right? There's a lot of potential there for him to be a good all around scorer in this season with Charlotte. Uh, then one of my other core pieces that I really actually just picked him up today. I sold Aldo Rocha, who is a midfielder at Atlas in Liga MX, in order to swap him out for Martinez. Now the MLS is coming back. So another Philly Union guy. I'm really big on Philly. They are one of the best defensive teams, and so because of that, I picked up their star defensive midfielder, right, Jose Martinez. He's currently 27 years old. He is potentially going to be in the MLS for quite a while longer. I think the Union have a club option on him for 2 more years after the season's over, so he might be in the MLS until like 2024 potentially. There are rumors of him moving to Europe or moving to a potentially bigger club. Uh, but honestly, just between you and me, like I don't see that happening. I think he probably sticks around with the Union. He's a really core piece of that midfield. Why did I pick him up? Pretty much the same reason as Walks. Potential for a really good AA score. He is a perennial candidate, a weekly candidate for triple triples and triple doubles. Um, if you check FBref, which again is one of my favorite sites for stats, he is in the top 20 of all midfielders in the MLS. Okay, every single midfielder in the entire league for tackles and interceptions, right? Which you need to get double doubles, triple triples, etc. And so the fact that he gets so many means he has a really, really good ceiling, a really high ceiling for an all-around score. He's not going to get many decisives, right? Because he's a defensive midfielder, so he's not really attacking, right? So not many goals. He'll probably end up getting like a couple of assists, so really not like any decisives at all. But if you check his server performance, his SO5 scores, he gets 70s and 80s just on all around score alone. And so he's one of those guys that I'm relying on to have a high floor, right? A guy who's not going to like screw up a lineup. He's not going to kill me in chances to win a card. But if he has a good week, if he gets on the end of an assist, then that's what I'm looking at. 90 scores, potentially a 100 score, because his floor is so high most weeks due to his tackles, interceptions, and his sort of aggressive nature within that midfield. So that's really what I'm looking at for my Champions America. Besides MLS, I do have a couple Liga MX guys that I'm holding on to. Diego Valdez, just got to move to Club America. He was with Santos Laguna. You can see his shirt there, his jersey is Santos Laguna. Just moved to the biggest club in Mexico, America. America is the best club. They are one of the highest scoring clubs in the league every single year. And the fact that he's an attacking midfielder and he's a starting midfielder, right, pretty much will play every game as long as he's healthy, means that I think he's going to have a really good season and a really good career going forward with Club America. Really great chance for goals, for assists, week in, week out with the best team in Mexico. And so I'm probably going to end up be using him as long as there's a good matchup. He may very well replace Pereira in some weeks or Leggett in some weeks. But my plan typically is probably to use him in like Global All Star 4, right? Global All Star Rare. Try to rely on him to help me reach that Ethereum threshold every week. But if I think like if they're playing like a bottom tier team, right? If it's America versus a bottom feeder team, then he might be slotted in as a starter in my Champions America team when I'm really gunning for a card, right? When I'm thinking about my lineups, Champions America is where I'm going for the win, right? Going for like a podium place, and then Global All Star is where I'm just kind of trying to grind out, right? The ETH. If I win a card in Global All Star, amazing, terrific, but that's not really what I'm going for. That's just my ETH grinder team. So I think most weeks probably going to try to use him for my eighth grinder team, but the fact that he's now on the best team in Mexico does make him have some potential to fit into my Champions America team in certain weeks. And then lastly, for a backup striker, this guy again will probably be my global all-star striker pretty much every week, is Juan Neno for the Pumas in Liga MX. Not a great all-around scorer. He's pretty decisive reliant. Pretty much will only score 60 plus if he gets a decisive, and so because of that, he's pretty much relegated to like my backup striker. If Buxa gets hurt, then he'll slot in there. But if Buxa is healthy, as long as he's healthy, then I see Dineno pretty much being my global all-star ETH grinder for much of the season. So that's what I'm looking at for this year. As always, teams constantly change, injuries constantly happen, and so I know won't be the final iteration of my Champions America squad, but that's really what I'm looking at, right? Buxa, Bond, Wagner, Leggett, Pereira, and then some other rotational pieces as I see fit, or depending on the matchups in a certain week. So if you have any ideas for maybe how I could improve my squad, if you think I've made a mistake, please let me know in the comments. I really want to get your thoughts. I know you guys are a really smart community. The server community is brilliant. So if you guys think I've made a horrible mistake, please let me know. But otherwise, that's all I got for you, and I'll see you next time on Server Teacher.